It was very powerful, and I got to see him in person when he was.
All right. Have it at 5:30. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We can start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Jeffries, are you standing? Are you prepared? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, purpose of this, make sure we have this. Purpose of this meeting is to, for the board, conduct board business. Meeting is open to the public and is recorded. You can listen to all past board meetings by visiting board docs through our district website. And this meeting is being presented via Zoom. It's not appropriate for audience members to interrupt board business or ask questions during the meeting. Agenda items will be addressed as listed in the agenda. And in case of emergency, please use the exit closest to you. And Director Roca, will you care to read our vision and mission statements?
I would love to. Our vision is our community inspires and prepares each student to thrive. Our mission is in connection with our community. The Sequim School District empowers staff to inspire hope and provide flexible, innovative learning opportunities in safe and respectful environment so each student thrives.
Thank you. And Director Johnson, would you care to read our land acknowledgement?
Of course. We acknowledge the land we stand on. The Sequim School District administrative and school buildings sit on the ancestral land of the S'Klallam people. While the S'Klallam traditionally come from one nation, history has led to the formation of three sovereign S'Klallam tribal governments. The Lower Elwha S'Klallam tribe located in Port Angeles, Washington, Jamestown S'Klallam tribe located in Sequim, Washington, and Port Gamble S'Klallam tribe located in Kingston, Washington. The district's primary partnership is with the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe. Today, the tribe and district share a partnership that includes official consultation on program and funding changes that may directly affect American Indian and Alaska Native students, as well as holistic service planning for students to remain successful in their educational journeys.
Thank you. And that's going to bring us to 2.01.
Okay, this evening it is my pleasure to announce that January is School Board of Directors Recognition Month. And with that, I do have a proclamation from the state of Washington, which I will now read, and then we will talk about some recognition for our members. Whereas the mission of Washington's public school system is to ensure that all students achieve at high levels and possess the knowledge and skills to be responsible members of a democratic society and enjoy productive and satisfying lives. And whereas Washington's 1,477 local elected school boards of directors and 9 elected educational service director ESD boards are the core of the public education governance system in our state, serve more than 1.1 million students, have a combined annual budget of over $15 billion, and employ approximately 120,000 people. And whereas school boards play a crucial role in promoting student learning and achievement by creating a vision, establishing policies and budgets, and setting clear standards of accountability for all involved. And whereas school board of directors are directly accountable to residents in their districts and region, serving as a vital link between members of the community and their schools. And whereas school boards and ESDs provide a passionate voice of advocacy for public schools and the welfare of school children. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize school board directors as outstanding public servants and champions for public education. Now, therefore, I, Jay Inslee, Governor of the State of Washington, do hereby proclaim January 2024 as School Board Recognition Month in Washington, and I encourage all people in our state to join me in this special observance. Signed this 8th day of December 2023, Governor Jay Inslee. On behalf of all of us in Sequim School District, I would like to thank you all for your service to our students, staff, and community. I also would like to take this opportunity to have you recognized for the work that you do. And so with that, I'd like to ask for us to congratulate you on your work, service, and outcomes that we are getting in our school district. Thank you. And at this time, I would like to ask Candace Ward, our Assistant Principal of the Sequim Middle School, to come on up and share a little token.
So the middle school made you a poster. Our leadership class was really excited to really take this on and find a way to honor you. What I don't think you think is a huge thing, but for them, they're like, how can we do this that's like the most important to them? So they want to invite you to come over for lunch, but they don't want you to only come over for lunch. They want you to come sit at their table. They want to take you around the school and show you all the cool things about our school. But being invited to sit at the table of middle schoolers is like a huge honor, right? Like they're like adults at our table. So they wanted to invite you guys over to enjoy some time and come over. And they said if they, you guys enjoy sitting at the table, they said you guys can even come out and shoot a hoop with them. And so that's a big deal to them. So we wanted to, that's huge for middle schoolers.
Yeah.
So I wanted to invite you guys all over, and they made a flyer and told you how to get in contact and come over and have an afternoon with us. So thank you guys for everything you do. We're really grateful for everything.
Thank you. So we'll pass those out right now. Go right ahead. And I also have a special message to read from Gray Wolf. You will see some children's books at your seats. From Gray Wolf. These biographies are of personal heroes of each of our board members. Each one represents one or more of Sequim School District's critical competencies for students. We dedicate these books to the service of our board members and are donating them to the Gray Wolf Elementary Library in their honor. You also see that you have some beautiful flowers before you, and I know those came from the high school floral class, and so we thank you for that. And then last but not least, we know that there is much that you have that you're responsible for, and signing documents is one of those every single meeting. And we would like to help you, and every time you do that, to remember that we do appreciate all that you do. And we have some very nice Sequim School District pens.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Sequim School Board. Ooh. Yeah,
Love it.
thank you.
Yeah, that's actually.
Yeah, it was it's like the next.
So we will make sure that your poster is in a place in the middle school where when you go to lunch, you can see it again. And we appreciate all of the efforts of the students out there to help us recognize the board. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And I think I speak on behalf of the entire board when I say we of course appreciate the appreciation. But also, I mean, when it comes to all the work that's being done, we make some high level decisions, but then it's our entire staff that actually are on the ground doing the work. And so I can't accept the appreciation without calling out all those that are making it happen on the ground. So
Districts are team efforts. no
yes,
doubt about
for sure.
that.
All right. And with that, that's going to bring us to 2.02. We have the OPA Future City presentation.
You may not want to see me, but I want to see you. So I'm gonna
Love
put
to
the
see you,
flowers.
Director Jeffries, always. So Olympic Peninsula Academy just had our 14th year at the Future City competition with me. We've actually been going there since 2007. Our three teams, we had one 7th grade team, two 8th grade, 6th grade team, because the 6th graders wanted to have a chance to work with somebody who's done it in the past. This year's theme was solving electricity in a renewable, safe, clean environment 100 years from now. For those of you who don't know what Future City is, it's solving a world problem 100 years in the future that engineers have designed, and they plan on, to be honest, looking at the students' work saying, is this plausible and is this something we can enact now? They get to create the city model, which you'll see up on the board here in a second. Each team has to create their city. They have $100 budget they have to stay in. They cannot exceed. And then after they create, before they create it, actually, they start writing their essay, which is a 1,500-word essay that they must have at least 3 references that refer to where they got their work outside of what Future City provides. There's a rubrics book that I gave to Superintendent Nichols that you guys are welcome to look at. And then once they're there, our region covers Montana, Idaho, Washington, and Alaska. This year, there were 29 teams competing. Out of the 29, Lickmocht took 5th place, which you'll see a picture in a second from. The 8th grade team that's showing right now is Trout City. They took the most overall equitable solution for 100% electric city, which is really interesting because their city's located on Lake Superior. They have to practice things such as what an engineer or a surveyor would have to do. And then they have to create the model. And while doing that, they have to include their teammates, which most of my classes here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 out of 13 students are here. And I'd like to introduce them so that you can get to know them. Jared Bessie, Marcus, and Emma are Lickmocht. Can you guys stand up, please? Jared's holding the trophy that they were given for 5th place. And then we have Trout City, which is Rue, Emma Rhodes, and Guy. Can you guys please stand up, please? Thank you. These guys are really unique because they're all 8th graders, cannot do this again next year. And it was their first time doing it. Well, Guy's second-ish time, but he really showed his work this year. Go ahead, sit down. And then Team Ramal Hara, which only 3 of them are here because one is sick, is Rivers, Braden, and Shay. And they're the 7th grade team. And this is the boys' 2nd year doing it. Shay's first. I'm going to open the floor up to them for you guys to ask questions. But one thing I would like to say, if there's something you guys could do for me, is encourage other schools and science programs in our own district to do this, because this gears them to start thinking about the future of what they want to do. I actually have 5 past students who have moved on to becoming engineers because of this program. And it's just a really great facet to be part of.
Nice. Well, welcome. We have, do we have any questions?
Sure. Would one of you mind sharing a challenge that you discovered throughout this that you were able to overcome as a team?
So one thing that happened while making our city is like working as a team can be really hard.
Mhm.
So during the way of building our city board, there were a lot of distractions because, you know, you're like building and then someone like starts playing or something. So one of the challenges we did have to overcome was just like a lot of people getting distracted. And the way we overcame that was by pretty much making roles for everyone, like on a chalkboard. Like we would take chalk and we're like, so someone has to do like buildings, someone has to do solar panels, and then we would assign pretty much who did it. And then when they were done with that, we would actually cross it out so people knew they had to get it done. And another thing is that like once we were like goofing off a lot and then we got like close to the end, then we were on time crunch and then I feel like we started getting more serious. And then a lot of people on my team started like working more hard because we're like, oh no, we don't have a lot of time. So then we had to like start thinking about like the really important stuff.
Mm.
So I feel like that's just a big challenge, is just getting distracted mostly.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Good strategy to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many folks, this was either their second or third time doing it? I don't know if anyone wanted to give some insight about year over year, what you thought of it the second time around versus what you were able to, what you were able to change or what you were able to learn from the first time versus the second time. Any comparisons there? It's-
Well, one of the things that happened my first year was I wasn't really included as much.
Okay.
And Guy was also on my team, which the reason why is he had a first year-ish. He wasn't able to stay in the class for very long. So me and Guy kind of felt a little excluded from the rest of the team. We had a team of 5 and wasn't the best feeling.
Okay.
And then our second year worked pretty well. We had a team of 5 again, which the other 2 weren't pushed out, but didn't feel too motivated to actually build the city with us. And we kind of felt bad for them
Mhm.
instead of feeling bad for ourselves. And I just want everyone to know, if this happens, just reach your hand out and help the other people,
Yeah,
help the people in the back.
yeah,
Wonderful.
super important. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I just have a comment about that. I think that a lot of what you described, distraction and inclusion or exclusion are things that we all face in the work world and have over the years. So this sounds like a really great opportunity for learning how to be on a team. And so I think that's really one of the great strengths of it, besides the problem solving. When you created these cities that you were, that you designed for the future, was this, like I can see if they're like physical manifestations, did you also have to have like work on a computer to sort of design this, or was it completely physical?
It was a mix of, we did have to do a lot of research on a computer, and then we got to take the research we learned from the computer and apply it to the board itself. And we used maps and different sites to learn more how to commune everything to the board.
Thank you.
How did you decide what materials to use to build your models?
Well, most of the stuff that we use is actually recycled, but the other things that we decided to use was mainly based off what would fit the role that was used for. Like up there on my team, Ramal Hara, you can see those little domes, maybe, if you can. Those we handmade out of little bamboo skewer sticks.
Oh, wow. Is that the thing that you had the $100 limit on what you could spend on materials?
Yeah.
What does Ramalhara mean?
Hot sand and Mediterranean.
I'm sorry, what?
Hot sand and Mediterranean.
Hot sand, okay. And Lichtmach means make light, right? Is that, no? Make power in German? Cool.
Okay, thanks.
Suppose the school board came up with some money to give you guys to go on a tour to some other schools to try to sell them on the idea of starting up their own Future City program. What's one or two things you would tell them to sell the program? Sure.
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
So this is my 3rd kid participating in the Future City program. And all of my kids have been impacted with their experience. And my oldest was the second recipient of Peninsula College Foundation's Full Ride Welding Program Scholarship, and she'll be graduating this year. And she was introduced to welding through the Future City competition. And my second son is currently competing in the high school's robotics program, which was also sort of introduced to him through his relationships in Future City. So I just think that this program is something that really opens the kids' eyes to STEM fields and what they can do to stay here in our city, where I feel like SCWM's greatest export is our kids right now. These are jobs they can do right here and stay here. So,
Dad, did you have something?
How did you know that was Dad? Oh.
Well, I just assumed.
And so Jared's my daughter, and my son went through it too for 2 years. And I 100% first want to give credit to Lily. She molded them. My son is doing the Running Start program. He learned what he wanted to do with physics and math through Future Cities. His team won the land surveying award 1 year. He's doing welding at the high school. I don't know if anyone, Jarrell, he has a mohawk normally, and he's on campus for about 2 hours a day because he does welding in his CAD here, and then he does a Running Start at the college. And he's going to be hopefully number 7 for a physics engineer in the future through Lily. He wants to work for Boeing and design things. And, Jared told me that she loves this type of thing in school. And I recommend it to any parent or school because it teaches them things that they're gonna need in life. They are happy about it, they're excited for it. This is the one thing that we look forward to every year, and it's kind of sad that we're aging out of it. But I met a dad whose kid was first year, so the schools benefit, the kids definitely benefit from speaking in front of people, getting over those fears of public speaking. They were the last set of judging, they were in front of a crowd of just straight judges, and they're on a stage, so they have to work through a lot of stage fright and talking to adults, and they all have done great. And I can definitely say any kid that goes through this, their future is definitely brighter. They're given the motivation to have an imagination and not told that they're wrong. Okay, here they give a project and say figure it out, and they figure it out, and they're never getting the life roadblocks they get. They're also given the traits to get over those every time. And it is a huge program that I would say any school should get involved in, and definitely the parents back it because we see the difference it makes in every generation of our kids. So SCWM has a great outlook for their students because these people are going to go into the world solving problems that we don't exist yet. We don't even know what's going to happen, and they're already solving them for us. So I thank you for supporting it because I can see that my kids have definitely benefited from it, and future generations will too.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would just like to express my congratulations coming in the places that you did with your teams. It's no small feat. You have a lot of teams that are coming in with creativity. I'm sure you met other folks from other schools and saw some really amazing things. So keep up the creativity because that's what's going to make our future especially bright. Thanks for doing that.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. It's going to bring us to 2.03. Yeah. Oh, this is a presentation on our phone system, right? All right.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, welcome.
I'm Jessica Goosey. I am the account manager for SCWM School District. I work mainly with Bo on the back end. And I've also brought in our manager of service delivery to represent us here, Anna.
Hi, everyone. All right. So we were contacted in November by Reagan and Bo expressing concerns with the Teams calling solution that Continuant implemented. And I just kind of wanted to talk everybody through the beginning. Reagan requested that we come and kind of explain where we started and where we're at right now. So,
Anna, could I take a moment just to set us up? So Thank you.
Yes.
I'm very appreciative of Continuant being here tonight. We did start a high-level conversation in November after having the system for over a year, and Bo was interacting with Continuant throughout that implementation year, sending in tickets and talking about the things that were going right, but also the things that weren't functioning as well. And so this partnership that has come along has brought Continuant to come out to our district in person and do some evaluation, pull down data. We've continued to meet virtually, as Anna just shared, with higher level management. And tonight is a PowerPoint that Anna and her team have put together to kind of show you the road and the journey that we've been on and what all of this data has shown us and demonstrated are possible solutions to some of our issues and what I can successfully say have been resolved. So I will tell you that our district has struggled with the phones, and Continuant has been absolutely willing to hear that and work with us. And so tonight, I do appreciate your attendance and the information you're going to share. Thank you both.
We're happy to be here. And we're happy to partner with SQUIM. We understand the trials and tribulations that you all have faced, and there's nothing more that we want than to help you get it right. So if we want to go ahead and go through to the next slide, I'm just going to explain to everybody who hasn't met Continuant who we are, how we met SQUIM, the scope of what it was that we deployed for SQUIM, how we're partners today, and just go through the escalation timeline and kind of what's come out of that. I don't want to bore you to death. There are a lot of slides, but I promise I'm not going to spend 100 years on each slide. So if we want to go ahead and pop to the next one, who is Continuant? That's just the title slide. We could pop to the next one. Thanks. So Continuant has been in the telephony game for 30 years. We started with old school Avaya stuff. We supported Toshiba like you used to have. And in more recent years, we have gone to unified communications. So Teams calling, we also do Zoom calling and Cisco unified communication systems. We support over 5 million users in 70 countries, and we've been Microsoft's Partner of the Year in both 2020 and 2022. And that is actually how we met SQUIM. As a Microsoft partner, SQUIM was working with Microsoft directly, looking at Microsoft calling plans, which, for anybody that doesn't know, in the old days, we had a great big box that looked like a refrigerator in a closet somewhere, and that's where your phones came out of. With Teams calling, it's much more of a cloud solution, and I actually have a fancy picture for that. And we were, SQUIM was referred to Continuant since we were local, and the Microsoft team felt like we would be a good fit. We proposed that we would help SQUIM move to Teams calling. You are already Teams users for chat and video and conferences, but we would overlay what we call Continuant calling plans, which are essentially carrier, just like your AT&T. And it also does 911 for you. And then we also proposed managed services. And it was at that time SQUIM asked us to participate in as well in an RFP for the Yealink phones that they had chosen. So we can go ahead and pop to the next one here. Scope of the project. I'm not going to read this whole slide to you because there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Oh, just kidding. That's the picture I was talking about. So essentially what we were proposing here, PSTN, that is the public switch telecom network. So that is the Great Wide Telephony Network. Continuant Connect, which is our calling plan, helps you guys connect to Microsoft so that you can actually make those calls in and out. That's just what this shows here. Scope of the project, we helped port all of the numbers from your previous carrier over to Scipio, which is the carrier that we use, and help set up your E911. we shipped out phones to Squim, sent a crew out, helped install those phones. And then we worked with Bo directly to migrate users to Teams calling from that old Toshiba PBX. We did all of those things that are listed there. It took lots of discovery, lots of time as we did the programming and made sure that things were set up with call flows and dial plans and all the other things to make your general calling queues and that sort of thing work. We also provided post-migration support to help Squim school district technical staff as issues come up, because issues do come up with any calling solution that you have. It was during this discovery phase and setup phase that we did talk to Squim about network requirements. We provided network assessment documents, and we talked about best practices. Continuant, however, as part of the scope, didn't have any networking included in this particular project that we deployed. So we can go ahead and scooch to the next one. Currently, now that we have deployed, we are in the next phase of the partnership, which is your incident management. So as issues come up, Bo can report those issues to us, and we help troubleshoot and identify if they are with Scipio, Entrado, or the Microsoft calling itself. Those are our areas of support for you. We will open those tickets with Scipio, we open tickets with Entrado, we open tickets with Microsoft as things go wrong. And our engineers who are, I can't sing their praises enough, super patient with those partners to make sure that we can get you what you need when things don't go well. So can scoot to the next one. So when we were contacted back in November, we can go ahead and scoot to the next slide here. We were told about all of the issues that Squim's been facing. And I think if you've used your phones at Squim, you've probably hit a couple of these issues. They are widespread. That includes things like calls dropping, even strange things like when you're trying to dial, the buttons lag and it doesn't pick up all the numbers, or weird delays between one end and the other. As we went through these issues, we identified some that we could most certainly help with ASAP, right? We said, okay, there's some of these things that can be addressed right away. Some of these others are going to require an on-site visit. So if we want to go ahead and go to the next one, I can tell you guys what we did there. All right, so Chris Nostrand, he's our lead Microsoft engineer. He is one of the biggest brains I've ever met. Super smart guy, super helpful. He and myself and Victoria, she is an up-and-coming Microsoft engineer herself, currently in our NOC. We went out and met at Squim Middle School. We set up network traces on your main network switch. What we were hoping to identify here is many of the issues that were reported sounded from our experience with Microsoft, with unified communications in general, and from the previous troubleshooting we had done, that there was something going on network-wise. And so we had hoped that we could identify whatever that was. And if it wasn't, that helped us narrow something down, right? So we spent some time with the office staff at the middle school after we set up those traces. And what we were hoping to do is place calls and watch calls go so that we could capture those. And so that Chris could come back and then pour over them and see if we could see what was going on. We then moved to Grey Wolf, spent some time with the office staff, and actually ran traces directly on Darcy's phone at Grey Wolf. What we discovered were a couple of things here. The best way for me to describe network, for those of you who don't know, and many will gloss over as we start talking about technical things, it's essentially a highway for your internet traffic, right? So you imagine that a good traffic day, everybody's got 2 or 3 car lengths between them, and everybody's just going 60 and having a good time, right? And that's what we found from the outside network into SQUIM. So we could see that, we could watch those packets come in, and there was about a 2 to 3 car length. It's about 2 to 3 milliseconds between each packet, super consistent. But once we were running the traces on the SQUIM network itself, we were noticing that those car lengths varied quite a bit, where sometimes it was in excess of 10 milliseconds, and then it was 1 millisecond, and then it was 20. And we were getting wild variability there, which is an indication that traffic can and will hang up, right? You're hauling down the highway at 60 miles an hour and you get stuck behind someone doing 40, you got to pump the brakes, right? So that's kind of what was happening with the traffic. And we certainly saw some packet loss there as well, meaning some of that data was dropping off, which means your calls were experiencing not ideal scenarios, right? We also identified that some devices were being flooded with what we call broadcast and multicast traffic, which is other devices out in the SQUIM network looking for devices to connect to. And we, from that, came up with some things that we could fix right away and some recommendations for SQUIM to take back to review and determine next steps. So we can go ahead and pop on to the next. Oh, this is my crayon diagram, so please forgive me. How the SQUIM network is kind of set up today. You have 2 lines of traffic going into each school. Each of those little squares is a school. That traffic then comes through the phone and to the computer, but then it's also being hit by printers and faxes and all sorts of other things that are looking for a device to connect to. Which we had suspected might be bogging things down a bit. So we can go ahead and pop on to the next. So here, from some of the initial issues that were identified, we were able to resolve some of them pretty quickly. One of those, teachers were experiencing great difficulty dialing out to some carriers. So T-Mobile, AT&T were 2 that were identified. We were able to replicate the issue and able to get that resolved through Scipio right away. The caller ID issues, we have some caller ID issues with Gray Wolf and Helen Haller. Those appeared to resolve. We thought we got those, and then someone from a different building had reported that they had another issue, and that is still under investigation. We have a ticket in for E911. One of the issues that was reported to us is that 911 wasn't routing to a local PSAP. So what a PSAP is the local dispatch. It was instead going to a national dispatch and then being connected. We've run some tests, and Chris, who's assigned to this, is now running through that and trying to figure out what's going on there with Scipio. We did provide some quick start guides on how to use the phone. We sent those over to SQUIM for review. One of the things that we did here as we were talking to teachers and staff was that they just felt like they didn't know how to use them. While that's not everybody, we did want to provide that data so that folks felt like they a little more comfortable using them, even if all the issues weren't immediately resolved. One of the other things that I actually forgot to put on here as well was there were some queue issues at Gray Wolf and Helen Haller, where the way that the phones were designed to ring was causing the poor administrators to have to get up and run to someone else's desk. And so we actually worked with Helen Haller, and we have resolved that one, and we have an appointment with Gray Wolf next week to get that one fixed as well. So if we want to go ahead and pop on to the next, we did have some recommendations. Again, these are around the network to improve some of the experience that the teams are having. Creating smaller subnets for PC traffic. Essentially, I have a picture for showing subnets. I'll explain what that means in a minute. Investigate the particular device, determine why it was over 50% of the network traffic. Bo has actually already taken that on. He completed that. we suggested that SWIM disable IPv6. If it's not required, currently that's in discussion, Bo and the technical team, and then implementing QoS at the switch level to further reduce the times. So let me explain QoS real quick. Essentially, the quick and dirty version of QoS is that it gives priority to voice traffic on the network, regardless of what traffic goes across. So using my highway analogy again, if you were in the left lane and you've got a convoy of semis in the right lane, if you don't have space to get off of your exit, you're probably not going to make it. You're hoping for the best. So essentially what QoS is requiring those semi trucks to make room so that you can pass in between. Okay, so if you're a voice call, making that space to pass. And then those were essentially the recommendations. We are really hoping that creating the smaller subnets solves the problem. Bo has done some testing and he was able to isolate a phone. Initially, it looked like the best case scenario. It was going really, really well. And then the user immediately started reporting different issues. We have traces on those issues. And again, Chris is working through those as well. I feel like he's dedicated to SWIM right now because he is busy working, trying to make sure that we can get this fixed for you guys. So with that, I have my picture of subnets. This is a much more complicated thing than I made it look with my fancy clip art here. Essentially what we're suggesting is that each school have two lines of traffic that run to the school, and each of those be different, right? Today you have two for the whole district. We're suggesting that each school, each building gets two separate lines all by itself, and that is run into those so that we reduce the overall traffic, right? The concern with this is that this is a big effort. This is a lot of architecting and a lot of engineering, and some potential downtime as these subnets are moved and changed. The hope with subnetting, since QoS isn't possible for SWIM right now, that this would help alleviate some of the issues. So again, we're testing and talking about that as a team, working with Bo and trying to support the SWIM district in whatever happens next from this perspective while we continue to work on the things that we can control. So with that, I know I spoke very quickly, and I'm sure I left some things out. I am certain everyone has questions, so I'm gonna go ahead and open it up.
You mentioned the QoS isn't available right now. What are we looking at for that aspect?
So I can speak to that unless you want to.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the switch hardware that the SWIM school district has right now, while it's very fast, it's capable of 10 gigabit connections throughout all of our buildings on the main campus. What QoS is meant to do is not a native feature of that set of hardware. So basically what a QoS implementation would look like for SWIM would either be setting up basically a network of parallel devices just to handle the phone traffic sort of alongside the data traffic, or replacing that existing switch infrastructure with other devices that could do both, but also apply QoS. In either case, it's quite a bit of undertaking, quite a bit of configuration work. So basically, realistically, it's going to be one of the last things we would try at this point. And so, you know, we've done some reaching out to other areas, and some of the information we've gotten from other engineers is that it shouldn't make a difference if the pipe has enough space, and with our 10 gigabit bandwidth we should, but the best way right now that we've devised to test it with the help of ESD 114 network services is to create sort of a 3-point test where at the end level where there's a phone, sort of at a midpoint and at the end point, and do a capture all at the same time. And if those packets are making it through in the time that they should, that's an indication that the packets aren't being dropped or that they're not being delayed. But if we're seeing delays in those lined up captures, then that would be an indication that something like QoS would make sure that those packets made it all the way through on time. So we're hoping to be able to replicate that kind of test soon to indicate, if that piece of the puzzle needs to be moved up the list, or if it's those other things like the subnetting and whatnot, that will hopefully address some of these issues.
What's sort of the overall time frame for this? I mean, in looking at these repairs and getting things to work, is there some sort of calendar for this, or?
I mean, ballpark, there are some things that we can prioritize and do all the planning for throughout the rest of this school year, and then the implementation / changes would happen during the summer. There are different elements involved. One of the feelers we put out with Continuant earlier this month was asking what they could do potentially to source different phones, just to see, if that might be part of the issue. There's some indication that these devices might be struggling regardless. And so, if there's a potential to address some of the issues by changing phones, then we'll work with Continuant to see if that's possible and if it's something that's budget friendly enough. But that's only one avenue we're going down. Obviously, the planning for the subnets, planning for the potential QoS. We're trying to keep all these things moving and doing testing and collecting data to see what's making a difference. And we don't want to waste any more time because obviously people need to be able to use their phones. So
What's based on fixes that have already been accomplished? It looks like they were able to do some things, but I know there's at one point there's certainly a lot of frustration with both as on the ground right now. What do we think that, like, what is the typical, that based on the users, what are they experiencing right now based on where the system is?
So the issue that the average user is most likely to run into, keeping in mind that, by volume of calls, right? That's going to be the administrative offices, their office personnel, the nurses, they're the ones fielding and making the most calls. But as far as like a district wide, the most common issue that someone runs into is maybe they haven't used their phone in 4 days, 6 days, since 2 weeks ago. And then they go to place a call and it doesn't go through. And so they have to power cycle their phone to get it to be able to make a call. And so because it was in that state, that also meant that it wasn't able to take calls, but it's not clear at what point it stopped being able to take calls. So that's kind of one of those unknown concerns. So we've done things like schedule automatic reboots, try and stay ahead of that as much as we can. But it still happens. So we still run into it. And then as far as the power users go, they're the ones that are more likely to run into things like calls being dropped or a significant delay in the talk and hear times between the people on the phone, or like in the cases of the administrative assistants who are on the call queues, where they pick up and they hear hold music and they start talking. They're like, "Hello, this is Darcy. Thanks for calling Grey Wolf." And the person maybe only hears to Grey Wolf, right? They don't hear the first part of that because the audio hasn't engaged in one of the directions quite yet. So things like that are more common for administrative office personnel. And so, as Anna said, we were hoping that the protection from the broadcast and multicast traffic would solve that. And it seemed to at first, the last couple days before winter break. And then when they came back from winter break, at first there were just a little couple quirks, and then by the end of that first week back, the call delays had returned. But we followed up by running another packet capture, no broadcast traffic, no multicast traffic, very clean looking from a packet capture standpoint, but the problems persisted, which is one of the reasons why we're trying to figure out, okay, are the subnets going to fix it then? Because if is it the phones themselves? Where are the issues happening? So we're doing our best. The more data we get, the closer we get to hopefully finding a solution.
I'd just like to ask Anna, do you have any comments on those questions that you'd like to make?
I think Bo covered most of it. We were out and we saw a lot of those issues, right? I am also curious about the issues with Darcy's phone in particular, the one that we isolated. And Chris from our team is still working on that. So we're working to get as much information as we can to help support what the next best step is.
Yeah, I could just,
Question.
oh, sorry.
Is this related? It was the genesis of this when we did all the rewiring for the fiber optic?
Nope.
So when did this start becoming an issue?
From basically the inception of the phone system, once people started using it. So we implemented it before, not this school year, but before the last school year. And then when people came in, we were sort of training them on the system. They were making calls, they were taking calls, we were setting up the call queues and all that stuff. And then we started to notice that they were having issues, but it was a brand new phone system, so it wasn't clear. We were actually still in the implementation phase at that sense. We hadn't shifted into the production phase. So we were working with Continuant implementation engineers, trying to figure out, what was at the root of these different things, which, what was user error? Were any of the phones defective? Were there things we needed to change? And so, we have email threads going back through, the summer of 2022 that kind of rolled before we finally switched over to the production phase so that we could get access to more of their support services, which, they've been really, helpful with, because they, as Anna said, it was outside of their initial scope. So they're doing more than they have to try and help us get to the bottom of this. But
Wasn't it was the contract to get us a functional phone system?
Yes,
I mean,
it was. I would say that some of the initial assessments seem to indicate that we should be fine. Some of the issues we were having with the network kind of alongside of the phone system that first year, we thought, okay, well, maybe it's because we're having these other issues. And so, we were doing wireless upgrades. We had just put in the new fiber. We were doing switchovers to that equipment. But as we continued to get those upgrades enacted and put into place, we were seeing improvements in performance on all other segments of the network, but the phones weren't also improving. They were kind of having the same problems that they were having from the get-go. But yeah,
So one thing I will share is that in my discovery through Bo and Anna and Jessica's work, when Microsoft was initially guiding some of our discussions back in 2021, please know that E-rate, a federal program to reimburse phone infrastructure, was transitioning. So analog phones were no longer going to be funded and districts needed to switch to VoIP. So Microsoft helped to guide us. The RFP was put out, and what Anna said is true. Microsoft suggested that Continuant look at this RFP, and they responded to it. Where I think there was a bit of a miss is that the assessment of our network to handle VoIP in the way that we were approaching it was really left to assumption. So I think Continuant, and you can correct me, Anna, Continuant had assumed a bit that Microsoft was making this recommendation, so probably the assessment was done. We, of course, felt like basic assessment was covered through Microsoft. And, we don't want to lay blame. We just know that there could have been a more robust investigation, discovery in that phase, and it might have prevented some of this, maybe not. It's difficult to know. And all of the solutions that we're looking at, there is a spectrum here of many things, including affordability, ability for our network and infrastructure to make those moves. We've got the ESD also guiding us, as you've heard tonight. So we're hearing in some cases some different information back. So it's a lot, and we appreciate the partnership to try to crack this nut and get a solution for our folks.
I was just gonna, I was just gonna share that if I'm understanding the problem right now, I've both as a parent in the district as well, I've experienced the delay, and I can and also as an educator, I can only imagine, but I just found myself needing to be extremely patient and still reaching the limits of just trying to have just a basic conversation. And so I can only imagine from our staff's perspective, what it's like. You just, whether it be a classroom teacher or you just finished a long day and then you're having to make possibly a challenging phone call to a parent after a day and maybe have a dialogue perhaps with a parent about what happened that day, and to have that added layer of the delay where you get into the situation where one party's talking over the other, and it's just, I mean, it's one layer that, although it seems like, well, how big a deal it's a big deal, and you don't want that over a potentially difficult conversation.
Yeah.
Not to mention, obviously, as there's not a lot that we can do about when the calls come in and when they come out. I mean, I'm sure at the front office there's ebbs and flows, but nothing we can control about that. They're, right when school's starting, those are coming in, right? And I mean, that's just going to be that's the nature of the beast without question. So I think that this and it obviously goes without saying, and hopefully we're good to go on that now. I mean, we've got to be able to call 911. I mean,
Yes.
100%, that's a non-negotiable for sure. So
Yeah, and on the 911 specifically, what was happening was, and I'm not sure how familiar you are, but basically they were calling 911, they were getting through, but instead of being routed to the local dispatch, they were being routed to sort of a national response center, which then had to collect information verbally before then routing them to the local dispatch to then present the information again, which was, crucial time. Anytime you're calling 911, you need to. So yeah, Continuant's working with Intrado on that. So that's a big piece of it. And I think one also piece worth mentioning just for the overall scope of things. Before we switched over to this VoIP solution, we were still with the analog system. That system was completely managed by maintenance. And when something went down, they physically went over and yanked out the shorted out card and they put in another card. Right there, we were at the point where they were on the gray market. They weren't affordable. They were no longer being manufactured. Right. So that came over to tech to take over the phones. And so, it's been an adjustment. We have the same staff before we started managing the phones as we do now. So it's, we just stretched us a little more thin, but we're we're learning to be more efficient as well as we can. So.
Okay, and I don't know if you wanted to share something in closing here.
Honestly, I don't have anything else. I just want to say that Continuant is empathetic to the situation. We know what these teachers and the administrative staff are going through. And as I had said, we're committed to being the partner that helps you get it over the finish line to make sure that things are working. And I appreciate you acknowledging the kind of extra mile that we've gone to help identify some of these network issues as well. So I just look forward to the next phase of this where we have knocked out some of these issues.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What I would say is next steps. You asked for a timeline of resolution. I think that we're trying to have good faith and effort toward trying some of these remedies and then making decisions about the remedies that may come that are, as we said, in need of summertime work projects, funding, and have a plan. But right now, the isolation and working towards those traffic reductions is what we're focusing on to see what we can do. And then we will be talking about different phones. The thing about different phones is it sounds like a quick potential solution, but if the issue is really the network, then the phone's replacement doesn't make the sense. we just have to keep experimenting. So we're going to, and I want to say to all of our staff out there who's struggling, we are aware of that. We are frustrated about that. I do believe Continuant is empathetic as they are expressing, and we appreciate the on-site visits because making those connections helps.
I mean, is there a possibility of just providing like temporary cell phones to the teachers to use until this gets fixed? I mean, there's different ways to
well, our-
address it, right?
I think what we would be doing is assessing where the phones are utilized and to what degree, and where we see that phones do not work at all, which that's not what we're talking about tonight. We do have the power up issues that we're dealing with, but we do have phones that are basically functioning. It's just difficult.
And,
But I mean, I don't, go ahead. Bo.
and I will say that, while that is something that is available to certain groups, like say the nurses, for example,
Mhm.
unfortunately, when those nurses are at Grey Wolf, I don't know if you've tried to make a cell phone call from inside Grey Wolf. It's a bad time.
Mhm.
But we have replaced radios.
Yeah.
So we've made sure that there is an ability to communicate.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it just seems to me that, I mean, it sounds like this is something that could continue to go on for a couple of months, and that, you know, if there's an easy solution, you know, a short-term solution to help, I mean, my first thought was, well, are teachers just using their own cell phones, which the truth is they probably are. Some teachers might feel comfortable doing that and having their students and their families having their personal cell phones. Some teachers may not.
Correct.
If they feel comfortable with it, we can just reimburse them for letting them use their cell phone. I mean, it seems to me that we need to, people have an expectation that they can reach people by phone. And that if we need a short-term fix to get through this, that we should create a short-term fix. Because Darcy should be able to answer the phone at Grey Wolf, and people should be able to talk to her. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if how anybody else feels about that, but I just, as I sit here and I listen to this, I just think, I mean, I don't know the technical parts of it, obviously, and I don't mean to be unsympathetic to it, but I do think that people expect to be able to talk on the phone.
And I will say that the vast majority of every day, Darcy is able to make calls and take calls.
Mhm.
Because she uses the phone so frequently, if she does have an issue, at this point, it's kind of second nature for her to power cycle her phone, and that gets it right back into working order. She shouldn't have to,
Mhm.
right? But she is in the practice of that.
Mhm.
And it's not something that she has to do every day, although some days she has to do it multiple times.
What does it involve, power cycling your phone?
You can unplug it and plug it back in,
Mhm.
basically, and it takes 45 seconds to reboot.
Mhm.
And in the meantime, because she is part of a queue, Sandra's able to take calls. She can take and make calls from the phone in the back office or from in the workroom. All those phones are all part of that same queue.
Mhm.
So those calls coming into the Grey Wolf main number are still coming through. And if they do leave a voicemail, it's getting transcribed and sent to all the people who are part of that queue. So we've put some fail safes in place to help mitigate some of the potential issues when those things happen. But yeah, it's definitely something that we're actively working on.
Yeah, and that's clear. And obviously, this is a very vexing and confusing problem for everybody who's working on it. And I'm sure it's very frustrating. And I have nothing to offer in terms of what I can do to help with that. But it does seem like, anyway, I just think we ought to be thinking about a temporary fix. And it seems like
Communication.
cell phones would be the obvious answer.
Communication is basic. Cell phones aren't necessarily the answer at Grey Wolf. I will say that, that is a challenging place, but we will keep you up to date and let you know. And we're making sure that we're getting folks around to understand where the impacts are and what's most significantly an issue.
And I assume too, in the meantime, people are using email and other forms of communication. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Bo. Thank you, Anna and Jessica.
Thank you. We appreciate your time. We appreciate all those hard work to partner with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and with that, that's gonna bring us to, we have an approval of our minutes. We also have an approval of our agenda, as well as our approval of the consent agenda. Prior to that, I do want to mention that we are going to be adding, there was a contract approval for the HVAC that we just got sent through, and just for simplicity, we want to add that to our board business as a separate agenda item versus in lieu. A lot of times it would just be added to consent agenda, but since it didn't have a separate title to it, we'll just add it to board business, just so it's clear that we're adding that in addition to that, in addition to what was already listed. So did you already add that? Okay, so yeah, that's just been added. And I believe that was emailed out to the board as well. So with that amendment, is there any, were you gonna say something before? Okay, is there any objection to the approval of our minutes, our agenda, and our consent agenda? All right. Hearing none, consider those approved. That's going to bring us to the public comments portion of the meeting. And if you are attending the meeting right now online via Zoom, you can indicate your request to make public comment using the raise hand feature contained within Zoom. And that will allow us to get you in the queue for making public comments. And do we have any? All right. And do want to just share around public comments that we do have a policy and procedure in place, 1400 and 1400P, regarding meeting conduct, order of business, and quorum. And this is generally the first item of business. Every regular board meeting is the public comment period, which is something we value. And this is an opportunity for visitors to be recognized to make brief comments. And we have the sign up sheet for those wishing to make public comments. And we will go ahead and start calling folks forward, but do want to give some parameters. The total time that we have allotted for public comment is 30 minutes. Each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes, and a group of individuals may combine their time up to a 10-minute maximum. Do want to mention that public comment period is not a time for dialogue between the board and the public. The board will not respond to statements, questions, or challenges made during public comment, and there will be no back and forth dialogue. Please know that the board's silence is neutral. It is neither a signal of agreement nor disagreement with the speaker. And although the board does not engage in dialogue, the board chair might ask a speaker a clarifying question. Also possible the school district staff will contact a speaker at a later time to follow up on an issue that's raised during public comment period. Finally, please remember your words do have impact, and you, not the school district, are responsible for your words. We caution all speakers that it is possible that your statements could violate the rights of others under various laws, including laws protecting privacy and laws prohibiting defamation. If you are unsure of the legal effect of your remarks, you should seek independent legal advice. In any case, we of course ask that you would help us model for our students what a respectful and inclusive community looks and sounds like. And do also want to mention it's not appropriate for complaints or charges about employees to be mentioned during public comment. These issues should be addressed to the superintendent in writing. And our first one we have is Derek Huntington. Okay. And John Graham. So John, you'll have up to 6 minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
Shouldn't need all of it.
Okay.
Last time I was just a few minutes shy of my 3 minutes. So.
Okay.
I understand that you guys are all been congratulated for. Unfortunately, I'm here to kind of share the opposite. I'm disappointed with the school card of the district.
With the what?
The school cards
Okay.
district off your webpage tells the statuses of standards. 53% met English and language art, 40% met math,
47% met science. I don't know about you, but if I took a test and got a score like that, I failed. If I got a job performance evaluation this poor, I probably got fired or had 30 days to get my act in gear. I don't know what's going on. A few months ago, I was here when they gave you the whole presentation, and I brought those papers as well. Those standards haven't changed. However, based on 2018-19 school year, said there was a 29% increased growth in math. And yet the 22 to 23rd school year, there was another 31% increase in math. So I don't know how that 60% increase still has a 40% standard in math. So I don't know how that computes. Ultimately, regardless of how that is, I don't know what's going on. I mean, they were here, they gave you the presentation. You guys, some of them, you seem shocked. A couple of you gasped a little bit, but there was no back and forth. I don't know if you've had private meetings on what can be done to bring these standards up. This is not good. It's not passing, it's failing. Nationwide, it says only 24% of Americans' 12th graders are proficient in math. Well, you guys are 40%, so that's not even that. Only 12% of those seniors have understanding of American history, and a third are proficient in reading. So this is nationally. Okay, public schools have been failing America's youth for decades. They aren't just dumbing down the next generation. Public schools are systematically, I believe, brainwashing students with harmful ideologies. Public education has been instrumental in producing an increasing number of anti-American, amoral, and even socialist-minded adults. I mentioned last time how socialism didn't work in Jamestown and Plymouth. They decided to go to more of a democracy base, and it seemed to work. Obama's time, Common Core standards were implemented in about 45 states, went with that. This is, by the way, why I think we're failing, is the Common Core curriculum. So I don't mean to lose you there. Common Core is basically Marxism for children. State-run propaganda meant to dumb down and control the little ones. It's been a long time coming, and Obama pushed it through stylishly and quickly as soon as he came into office. And it's been brewing even since the 1990s, which kind of makes sense. I graduated in '88. I don't remember anything other than good old math, history, science, and history, and you know, how to be a good person. If you did something wrong, you had the punishment for it. Okay, but even some educators and activists objected to these standards. The stepped up focus on nonfiction reading, saying it would downgrade the place of good literature in the classroom. Others said the standards harp too much on cold readings of complex text without any background or preparation. Some early childhood educators urged that the first and second graders were expected to tackle skills that they weren't developmentally ready for. Some math educators contended that the standards were particularly weak, preparing students for college majors in math or science. There's other options out there than Common Core. I don't know what they had before Common Core. You can go back and look at the statistics of their report cards or their district cards. I don't believe our schools were ever that poor ratings for English, math, and science. There's free stuff out there. Hillsdale College offers for free public K through 12 education for schools, and even we'll be glad to talk with school board members. All the assistance the office provides is free. And that's just something I looked up. All you got to do is alternatives to Common Core and on the internet, and you'll get probably half a dozen of other things that we can teach these kids so they're learning. That's all I have to say about that. I don't want to take a ton of time. I just want to make sure I had enough to say that part. On other business, I wasn't able to come to the last meetings and where you discussed the bus schedule, and I'm all for the tier 2 bus schedule. It's a great idea. I wish we were already doing it. Seniors shouldn't be by elementary school kids with their language, their content on their phone. It's just not a good idea. You've heard the complaints come in by phone. So I hope you guys go forward with that, even if there's an additional cost in diesel, whatever. I do have some just handouts of just what I talked to you about, the K through 12 education through Hillsdale that I can give to, I think, Tracy. And then a couple of quotes I thought were really good. One actually I heard last night. Don't do what's easy, do what's right. Okay, sometimes going against the grain to do what's right is worth it in the long run. We don't always need to go riding with the flow of traffic. And those that don't learn from history, you know, the rest are destined to repeat it. Thank you for your time.
Jim Stoffer.
Good evening, Jim Stoffer, a citizen of Sequim, and thank you for your work. I know it is not easy, and you continually seek alternate ways and different systems, and so I thank all of you. And those test scores don't change overnight, and those that are in the classrooms know that. But I also want to thank you for the ribbon cutting of the gym floor, and I think Megan did these. So as a voter, these are very appreciated because having voted for this and been on that side before, it is very appreciated. Now switching over to my ESD hat, I can't fix that phone system right now, but I will mention it to the supervisors. But Senate Bill 5873 is up for a hearing on the 23rd. It's about providing adequate and predictable student transportation, which I know is all near and dear to all of our hearts. Senator Van de Weg is on that committee. I sent him a love note. I think more in the community could send him that too, to get that maybe over through the goal line there. And then my neighborhood on Sun Meadows off of West Wind Bay Road, the HOA is going to put out some more lights out there for that bus stop. But I was wondering about a sign, whether that's county or city, but you see them around that says bus stop ahead. And if we could look into that. But the HOA is, they want to put more lights out for there's about a dozen kids, I think. And during the darkness of winter, it's a little hard to see them as they're coming out. So they're not all wearing their reflective vest or that gear. But from there, thank you for all your work again. And we'll see some of you on Olympia on Sunday and Monday.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you. Yeah, when I know West Swim Bay Road, I can speak from experience. Cars get trucking along there really quick, unfortunately, so. We have I believe that's all of our in-person public comments. We have Keith Lee online. Give us a moment. We'll go ahead and. Okay, well, that's okay. We just had him in the queue. Keith Lee, did you still want to make public comment?
I did left.
You appear to be unmuted, Keith, so go ahead. All right, maybe some technical difficulties. Okay. We could. Okay, all right, we can try again at some point if we can, or we can always, you can always present public comment in writing as well, so. All right, with that, I believe what we'll do is we'll go ahead and close the public comment portion of the meeting. And that is going to bring us to, I believe still have, yep, hard to see it, all the flowers, but our student board representative reports.
Hello, everyone. I hope you are all doing well. As stated at the last board meeting, the end of the semester is February 2nd, and the last day to turn in any late or missing assignments is this Wednesday, January 24th. Students are also busy studying and preparing for their finals, so it's a bit of a stressful time for the SHS students. Apart from that, the winter ball was this past Saturday, and there was a lack of attendance from the upperclassmen, mostly due to the fact that it was a busy time. Seeing as we are so close to the end of the semester, another thing that was brought to our attention was the fact that a lot of the Running Start students were not aware about the dance. So a suggestion for the future would be to put such events and activities on the bulletin to be able to reach to more students. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we have our capital projects report. And first 90 days, I think we're calling it, yeah. First 90 days of who?
Thank you. Good evening to the superintendent, the board, and our student board members. Just want to start off real quick before I jump into the capital projects report. I'm sorry to report that my 90-day plan progress report is not complete. Unfortunately, the snow, ice, frigid temperatures, and all of our recovery efforts got in that way. So I'll have it for you either the next board meeting or the next time I speak to you. I'll probably deliver the executive summary to the executive staff, and they can deliver it to you in writing so we can have a discussion when I see you next. At any rate, capital projects update. Helen Holler Sewer Lift Station Designer has been selected. We are anticipating fee schedule arrival sometime next week. We should be able to commence design also sometime next week with sidewalks. Helen Holler Fire Protection System Designer has been selected. When the design's complete, we intend to use that same design as universal across the district. So we can apply that body of work to future fire protection system replacements and upgrades. We are contemplating, and I want to emphasize we're contemplating, adding the middle school fire protection system, which is obsolete and delisted, to the anticipated fire protection system construction scope. So if you understand the progression in a design bid build process, this is the design phase that I'm referring to. The bid phase is the RFP bidding for construction, and then construction is construction. So we're looking at potentially adding the middle school's fire protection system, specifically its controller, to that scope. 2 bids were received for the district building management system replacement project, with 1 bid compliant and accepted. The anticipated bid, or the bid that we've accepted, is 22% under the engineer's estimate. And the timing of the project will coincide with the high school HVAC project as planned. The board has in front of them the contract for building engineering systems for approval. I believe it was approved tonight. You'll see the cost on that particular contract. We had estimates as high as engineers' estimates, to be specific. Engineers' estimates as high as 1.1 million for this project. Co-op procurement options regarding the upcoming roofing projects have been received. We anticipate releasing the RFPs for bid within the next 30 days. It's a very large scope between the 3-tab and the rest of the flat roof replacements that we must do in short order. It is a fairly large scope, and it essentially touches every campus. The OPA HVAC project has begun. Happy to report. Temporary heat has been installed. I'll get to some of those details in a moment. And the old units have been removed from the rooftops. Receipt of ductwork and equipment is scheduled for early February, specifically the 19th and the 24th. That's preliminary. We're hoping that weather, supply chain, or other maladies don't get in our way in the meantime. But ductwork is due to start being installed on the 19th, with the equipment arriving and being installed on the roof with their custom curbs on the 24th. My apologies, Mr. Flater. I just got that this afternoon. The high school HVAC project contract has been signed. Notice to proceed has been given to the contractor. Project coordination, sequencing, submittals, and planning has started. Business management office and boardroom construction has begun, with demolition occurring all last week and partially into this week. Today, they were just starting to put up steel studs and drywall. Quick note about the OPA temporary heat. Just to give us a baseline, it was installed on December 5th, operational on December 5th. During those 7 weeks, we've had 2 outages. One during that week when we couldn't quite get it fired up due to the pressure of the propane tanks. And then, of course, over the weekend, we had an outage. We didn't know about it until this morning. So when we got there this morning, unfortunately, Mr. Flater and company were a little chilly in the gym. That's the bad news. The good news is the vendor will be here in the morning with another unit if necessary to get it back up and running again. To put it in perspective, in the 7 weeks that that system has been operational, with the 2 outages, that's 95% uptime. And to be candid, that's quite significantly more reliable than most of the HVAC systems across the district that aren't temporary. So I asked Mr. Flater and his constituents to please be patient with us while we move through this project. We'll have a few hiccups along the way. We do apologize for the outage, and we'll get it handled in the morning, either by putting a new unit in or fixing the one that's there, one or the other. Thank you, Mr. Flater. So yes, the part of the OPA HVAC project that has begun is we replaced 3 of the barred units on the portables over Christmas break. Thanks, Nat. I was going to mention that in my Christmas break report, but you got me anyway. I appreciate it. I want to mention appreciate all the hard work of the maintenance and the custodial staff during the Christmas break, including the installation of 3 barred units. Highlights of that are the partial renovation of the Helen Holler Pod A boys bathroom, the OPA cafeteria paint, and significant progress on OPA's clock intercom systems, with only the gyms remaining. The gyms will be done this week. We got the scissor lift back, so we'll complete that. And then finally, I want to convey my great thanks to my staff and maintenance, custodial, and the transportation personnel, our transportation partners, especially Scott, for helping us plow the properties and plow and salt and sand and clear the properties over the period of time when we got a significant amount of snow for Sequim, but the low temperatures significantly hampered the clearing efforts as the refreeze and the clear and the refreeze continued over the next week. And again, I apologize for not having a 90-day update. I'll have that for you soon. Are there any questions?
Questions? I don't have a question, but I was going to say thank you for your quick response on that. I mean, I think even before we may have even received certain emails from teachers, you already had scheduled coming out for that heater to be fixed. So, I mean, I'm looking, everyone was dealing with something. I own a business. We had lines frozen. I have a friend who owns a plumbing business, over 150 calls in one day.
Yeah.
So it's not unique to us. So I think that 95% is a pretty good number considering what we've been dealing with.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Pass it along.
Anything else?
Anything
All right.
further?
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good night. Thank you for your time.
Now I have finance and enrollment report.
Good evening. I'm gonna go over budget status reports for the month of December. And we'll pull up our fund balance report first. Go over our balances for our 5 funds. So in general fund, after expenditures and revenues for the month of December, our ending fund balance is at $1,111,185. Capital projects is at $4,041,680. The debt service fund is at $74,804. Associated student body is at $532,754. And our transportation vehicle fund is at $1,589,020. And our transportation vehicle fund will be decreasing. We have buses that I think are in Washington. So they're close. So, we're just waiting for those to get to the western side of the state. And then our capital projects, you heard Mr. Santos talking about things that are happening, and so there's a lot of things that are all happening all at once now, and so our capital projects balance will start to be used. Let's go to our next report, which is our general fund activity report. And this is just another breakdown of our budget status reports for the month of December, comparing numbers to the column in blue, which would have been our actuals to date through December of 2022. And so you can see that the expenditures and revenues are just broken down in a certain way to show you if they came local dollars, state dollars, federal dollars, and then where we expended those dollars for the month. And then our final report is just a different way of showing our expenditures by a summary by object, which means it's broken down into salaries for certificated, classified, our benefits, supplies, materials, purchase services, travel, and capital outlay. And so you can see with encumbrances, so our expenditures to date and encumbrances based on our budget, we are at 88.47% expended, counting encumbrances, which mostly make up salary and benefit. There's some encumbrances that have our utilities for the year, contractual services that we might have out there for the year for like our therapists and things, like ESD. Those things are all in the 5/7s and so on. Any questions? Yes.
What's our current reserve fund balance? What's it looking like?
I don't know what the percentage is. I didn't figure out. I should have been, you're gonna ask me that. But yeah, $1,111 for the month of December.
It's about 2.5%.
Huh?
It's about 2.5%.
2.5%. Questions?
Right. Thank you. Our next, we have committee reports.
So I'd like to just speak to this for a moment. Our board has been active with committees, and you all have different stations on committees. And we thought it'd be nice for you to be able to speak to the discussions and the work that is going on in those committees, and just share any update that you would like to the entire board.
I'll start. I serve on the Education Committee along with Michael Roca, so he will probably want to add some things to this. And I'm very honored to be on that committee. Donna Hudson, who's the Director of Teaching and Learning, heads the committee and brings to the table such, I think, such expertise and such background that it's really set a high bar for the committee. And it's made up of not only Michael and I and Donna, but also school principals and program leaders in the district. And primarily what we have been focusing on is really learning about some of the programs that we offer here in the SWIM school district and looking at those educational programs, where they are now, how to improve, how to move forward, some of the challenges. And just to mention from last time, we looked at the Indian education program with in time immemorial curriculum. And what I found particularly valuable about that was that we had an opportunity to really go into the Canvas platform and look at the resources that the teachers are using and the lesson plans. And a lot of it is sort of under construction. It probably always will be, because always changes happen and improvements are made. But it was a really great opportunity for us to share ideas and look and see what the district is doing in this very important program. So as a starting place for the Education Committee, I found it really, really meaningful.
Well, I'll head on. I think, yeah, you did a good job of explaining the stuff we've been looking at. I also think that it was very nice to be asked to be part of the committee as someone with different viewpoints, you know, from maybe some of my other board members. So I think the fact that the superintendent has taken the thought of that to get all perspectives into these different committees, I think it is a testament to trying to serve all of our community. So I do think that's something that people should know, that there is representation, you know, political aisles, male, female, all that. We do look to try to get different viewpoints, stuff that affects, you know, our children. So I think that's an important thing to add.
I serve on a couple committees. One is the Safety Committee, which is made up of mainly all the assistant principals plus Mike Santos and the superintendent. And I'm very impressed with what they bring to the table, especially concerns about the various schools. Obviously, the more recent attack on Perry High School, I brought up because I was a former student in Perry, Iowa, when I was a young kid, and my dad taught at the high school. So I took the opportunity to leverage that into some more discussions, and the Safety Committee is talking about how we can become better prepared. So stay tuned and hear more about that. The Facility Committee, a lot of what you hear from Mike Santos here at these reports are basically reported at that Safety Committee. And I think the principals attend most of them. Is it the principals that, hopefully I don't have a mix, principal or assistant principal, and they say, what's going on at what concerns do you have at your school, that sort of thing. So I'm very impressed with both committees and the seriousness in which it's taken, and the enthusiastic support for safety and security and facilities at their schools and in the district.
I'm on the Policy Committee, and we have a meeting coming up next week. And I unfortunately missed the last meeting, but I think just as a general proposition, Policy Committee sounds like it's pretty dry, and you know, you're just sort of pulling out the notebook and looking at the policies. But the truth is, the policies are what guide the decisions that need to be made by our administrators and our teachers. And when a problem comes up and a teacher needs to know, you know, how do I deal with this disciplinary situation, or how do I deal with this safety situation, or whatever, you have to be able to look at the policies, and the policies need to be current, and the policies need to be useful. And so it's really important to do. And I give a lot of credit over the last few years, the policy committees realized that we had some very old, outdated policies. And I'll put a lot of, give a lot of credit to Tracy for this, is that she's really helped us get through all of the old, outdated policies and make sure that we were current and compliant. And so I think we're just trying to stay ahead of the curve and make sure that our policies from this point forward maintain are also, remain current and compliant with the law and helpful to the people who need to consult them and can actually understand what the policy is telling them to do and provide appropriate guidance. So it pleases my lawyer brain to get to pick apart words of policies. I actually enjoy it. And plus I enjoy the give and take with the staff members who are on the committee. So that's what the policy committee has been doing. And as you see the work every, pretty much every board meeting when we are considering and moving forward policies and adopting updated policies. So.
I would be negligent not to mention on one of the subcommittees on the facility committee is the stadium committee, which is addressing the field and the track. So that's also ongoing. But it's an outgrowth of the facility committee. And I know a lot of people in the community and in the schools are very interested in where that's headed and the challenges that ahead.
I'd like to compliment the board on your work and your time commitment with the committees. It really does make a difference in our day-to-day operations. I also would like to compliment the tendency we have on each of the committees to look outward for expertise. So for instance, policy committee, we're always tracking what WASDA is delivering for updated advice, and we're doing that on a quarterly basis and making sure we're in alignment. For the safety committee, we are utilizing I Love You Guys protocol, and we also are having experts come in. We had the fire department come in and give us information once they had gotten back from a seminar in Nevada. I would say on our facilities committee, we're using Wenaha, our project management firm, to help to guide us and make sure our priorities are moving. And of course, Mike Sanos is bringing us some wonderful asset management experience as well. And the education committee, just as we did at this latest meeting, talking about how our Indian education grant is moving, we had tribal consultation just the week before, so that we're managing all of the converging perspectives. So it's not an easy road, but it is such an important one. And I thank you for your commitment to it.
That's gonna bring us right into the superintendent report.
Okay, first on my report this week is the snow and weather debrief. Director Sanos certainly made reference to it. I cannot say enough about the way that our campus care was prioritized. I'd like to thank our bus drivers. It takes a lot of diligence, confidence, and competence to drive in weather. Also, I'd like to thank our staff for making it amidst the challenges and also rolling with things. It's hard to be inside your classroom and watch the snow start to escalate and come down. There's a lot of distraction with that, much less there's also feelings of being anxious about it. And I really do appreciate that people are being patient as we get our systems in place. I would like everyone to know that the snow calls in the morning are relatively elaborate. We do have Director Hall here from Transportation. He is out driving the roads very, very early, 3:30 a.m. at some points, 4 to 5 a.m. Regularly. We're communicating during those times so that we know real live data information from multiple routes across our district. We also consult multiple weather models. It's very important to know that we certainly do have common sense factor of looking outside, but we also do have to be predictive and project what's going to happen. And I'm going to tell you that is not an easy task. And anyone who's ever been a meteorologist knows you think you're right. We also are considerate of what our campus care can and can't be. And the infrastructure that we have in Sequim School District to care for snow is incredibly limited. And that's why I give the accolades to the team, because when you see people on lawnmowers that have plows and they are making the progress they do, it is amazing. But just in this past challenge we had, we recognized we're using a lot of snow melt. Snow melt only works at certain temperatures. We've recognized the need to integrate more sand. So we've made that transition. We do have a plow being put on another district vehicle. So we'll have a secondary plow. I just think we're making our way, and hopefully we're done with snow, but if we get that again, we will handle it similarly, learning from the things we did over this last challenging time. Any questions on snow or how we handled calls or? Okay. I did reference the tribal consultation when I spoke about committees, but I'd like to complement this process. We did have a tribal consultation that was set up in partnership with the tribe through our teaching and learning department. That meeting was quite robust. And what happened at the meeting was really going through the bylaws and looking at what needs to change to become either A, more aligned with what really does happen in practice, or B, to look forward and be progressive. And so we are going to be invited to the tribal headquarters to have a February occasion where we can have a meet and greet and see more of the tribal interactions on their ground. So I really look forward to that opportunity and want to thank them for their partnership in coming out. The two-tier bus exploration is continuing per your direction at our last meeting. I wanted to go over how we intend to collect data. We have met with the Center for Educational Effectiveness. They do issue a comprehensive school survey in multiple facets: family, staff, student. And we are going to move forward with that and have custom questions related to two-tier busing and also considering later start times. We're going to gather that preliminary information for you and share that. And then we will move forward in going deeper with what questions would be relevant based on the data we receive. So that should be coming out, and we are targeting the first week in February, hopefully to release a survey, if not into the second week. I wanted to let you know that Director Sanis and I met with a firm that prioritizes asset management, strategy planning, and transformation of assets that need to be considered for renovation or for replacement. And that, of course, is in our path to a potential bond for 2025. We will be also we've engaged 5 different firms in considering completing an enrollment census for us. And speaking of an enrollment census, we want to project ahead. What are the birth rates in Sequim and the region? What do we see for enrollment trends coming in the next decade? And speaking of enrollment, we did have the chart up earlier for our enrollment. We have held steady. We are at 2,517 students, not counting our running start students. And that is down just 2 from December. So that is a good pattern to have. We are up 16 FTE from last school year at this time. But we continue to miss the budgeted forecast that we had for enrollment. And so we are considering how we can continue to mitigate for that in our budget, because as you see with fund balance, our fund balance will need to cover any of the excess expenditures we may have because our apportionment gets adjusted. Your initial apportionment is based on what you project for enrollment. So we'll keep monitoring that. just like to compliment the ribbon cutting that was referenced during public comment. The ribbon cutting for the new gym floor was a celebration for student athletes, but also for our community. It was wonderful to see that our students were able to cut the ribbon, and also that the legacy that has been going on in that gym for so many decades will continue, but on a new and beautiful floor. I did get a chance to speak to a couple of the student athlete users of the floor, and they absolutely complimented that the experience of playing and practicing is not only they feel good about it, but we have a lot less shin splints apparently. So that's really good news for our students. So we're happy about that. And thank you for those who could attend. We did have a Chamber of Commerce representatives come out to help us, and they allowed us to use their large scissors for the ribbon cutting and provided purple ribbon. So we appreciate that. And then just an update in the consent agenda this evening, you did approve a program called My Tutor that we're looking at using at Helen Holler Elementary School as an intervention strategy. It would be utilized during the school day. We're finding it challenging to find enough staff that have the time to actually be after school and tutor. We do have some who can find that, but it's hard to carve out. We also have students and families that find it hard to be after school. So we are going to try this methodology that we recognize has been used successfully in other school districts. And what we're going to do is use high poverty LAP funds in order to facilitate this. And we're going to learn from it and see if we can find places where our staff can learn things from different tutoring platforms. And then also see if staff give us feedback that the tried and true that we've always done is what there would be preference for. Director Hudson, anything you'd like to add on that?
What it allows us to do is try and build capacity with our own staff. So we'll contract with the agency. They'll offer 2 staff members, but they'll train 2 of our staff members. And so while we have a short fix of increased dosage for 80 students this year, we're building capacity with our own staff. And what we hope to do is be able to carry on skills that we've met, being specific to actual student data and just increase our own capacity to work with our kids.
I'm just wondering, so does the people that are our employees that are being trained in this program, will they be taken away from other responsibilities that they have?
Yeah, so they're currently reading our educators.
Okay.
So they'll just enhance their own skill set.
Okay.
And then in closing, we did have SQUIM Education Foundation visit us at a prior meeting, and Director Jeffries and I attended their most recent meeting. They have moved the time for their fundraiser to next fall. And there are reasons for that around preparation and timeline. So we'll be looking forward to that likely in October or November. One more thing. Yes.
One other thing. We also at the Helen Holler have school improvement monies. And so we will be hiring some additional hours of paraeducators. So the answer is kind of, but not really. So our reading paraeducators will continue with reading, but we'll backfill some of the non-classroom things with other short-term para support.
But they'll all be with current employees, or will you be hiring anybody from outside to be trained as tutors, or no?
We will not hire anyone from outside to be trained as tutors. That will be our internal current staff.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay. Going to bring us to board business, and we're going to start with the legislative update and discussion. Director Jeffries, do you want to start us off?
Well, as you know, we have our legislative conference coming up on the 28th, I think, which is a Sunday afternoon. A long auditorium, lots of good speakers and so on. And then follows the next day by Day on the Hill. We're pretty much 3/4 of the day, we'll be tromping around the Capitol complex down there, meeting people, talking to people, learning things, meeting with other board directors and with our legislative reps and or their staff. Last year, I thought it went very well in that somewhat spontaneously, we divided up into small groups. It wasn't exactly divide and conquer, but it was Some of us met with this legislature, some legislator, some of us pulled legislators off the floor. Some went to other offices. And then when we came all back together again, we were able to compare notes. There was a special session for students. I haven't seen what they're going to do this year. It was with Chris Reitall, the superintendent of public instruction for Washington. And 1 year when I went, the special student session was with the governor. Reitall's a lot more entertaining in a lot of ways. The governor's a little bit more impressive because of his position. We also have, I think, Stacy's arranged for some individual meetings with our 3 reps. And there are meetings scheduled with various House and Senate committees that WASDA has arranged. So they're overlapping, so we'll have to do some coordination, like who's gonna go where. Maybe the best plan isn't for us to all go to the same place, although we could do that. And then possibly we need to discuss or think about, your top 2 or 3 legislative items. We heard a little bit about transportation tonight. Maybe it's special ed. 2 or 3 things you want to focus on rather than spreading it thin and telling the legislative rep, these are the 10 things I want to see happen. There are some special ed, transportation, some real important things going on there. In my mind, the defeat of the prejudgment interest bill has come back up again, but evidently they've amended it. That's might be a little more favorable to schools. So we'll just have to see what that is. And on a separate note, I'm also on the WASDA Interscholastic Athletic Committee for WIAA. And we were just meeting just before this meeting. It's not legislative, but they are a regulatory body and they come up with rules and regulations for athletics and activities, from sports to music. And tonight they were talking about the possibility of esports, online gaming and stuff like that. There's about 28 proposals that they're looking at. I think the superintendents have already looked at them and made recommendations to WIAA. I'll be getting a list of those 28 amendments and passing them on to people like Michael, who is our WIAA representative liaison on this board and other boards in District 4, trying to get their feedback. What do you want me to tell WASDA? Do they support, not support? And then they go to WIAA and make recommendations. Yeah, we should make this change. So it's not exactly legislative, but it's along the same lines.
Yeah.
So whatever you have to say or discussion, we'll probably get an email sometime this week about where we meet and when we go, all that itinerary information.
Yep. I do want to reflect a little bit on the suggestion about the priority items, because sometimes I think almost twofold. One, I would suggest it's those items. I mean, there are so many priorities, right? But it's those items that I think one has the most likelihood of getting over the finish line in this short session, number one, and then what would have the most impact to the SQUIM school district, kind of number 2. And one of the 2 that, and I just want to put these out there, 2 that come to mind for me, I think would be beneficial. One would be the fully funding special education, because that is, as we know, we will meet the needs of our students as obligated by law regardless, which is what we do now. But that money then has to come out of our EP&O levy to backfill what's not funded by the state. And so it's not just about it's not just about special education, it's about our entire system, right? Because you have to take that money from somewhere. I have heard that there could be thoughts of, if not removing the cap, I've heard 17.5%, which I believe would be beneficial to our school district if it were to be increased to that. The other one would be, which actually doesn't cost the state any money to pass, but it would bring it to a vote of the people, would be a removal of the simple majority for bonds, which I think is particularly based on timing and our facility needs here, that might be well timed. So I just, those two items did come to mind, and curious what as priority items potentially.
It wouldn't be removal of the simple majority, be replacing.
Or yes,
the
thank you.
Super
Going to
majority.
a simple
With
majority.
a simple majority, there's another bill to move it to 55% instead of 50%. I don't know. Yeah, there's talk about 17.5% cap on special ed. Sequim School District, we're 16 something percent. So we have to come up with the other 1.5%. So that would be beneficial to us. And what was the other one you mentioned?
Transportation.
No, transportation.
I just mentioned the moving to simple majority.
Yeah,
Thank you
and
for
what else?
correcting, and then sped removing the cap.
Right. And you have a-
Or an increase to 17.
you have a third one, just those two?
Just those two.
Okay. Oh, I was gonna say, probably Wednesday is when WASDA comes out with, finds out what's going on, and they'll be coming out Wednesday or Thursday with their information. So somebody will be sending you boatloads of email about all the legislative. I won't mention my name out loud, but that's who will be sending. So you can kind of look at of the 1,000 bills that have been introduced, they're whittled down, getting whittled down to something more manageable, but that doesn't mean it's gonna pass, because this is a short session. But keep looking for more emails from me about what's going on out there. Sure.
When I look at the list of bills, I mean, it is even a short session, there is like a lot for education. And a lot of it sounds great, but I do understand that most of that is not going to get to the finish line. And I agree with Eric that we need to really prioritize a couple of things. And actually, I like those too. A couple of bills to really focus our energies on so that we have a message that's coherent to our representatives there and to the committees. I think that's definitely the way to go.
We've gone two of the meetings, potentially, we're still finishing touches to the itinerary, but two of the meetings, we're actually going to be meeting with our representatives. I believe we're also going to have the board of directors with the Port Angeles School District along with us at that meeting. And the other piece is, I think, both of those that I mentioned, I think would also be beneficial to that district as well. So sometimes that common voice of two different districts coming together saying, we got to get these done, it could be beneficial too. So if they be on the same page, that isn't all of their needs, but that's not all our needs either.
Predict they might. I would encourage us to push ourselves to a third and make sure transportation is on our list. As you remember, last year, we had a collaborative effort with other districts while at Day on the Hill around transportation. It is affecting the Olympic Peninsula disproportionately because of our rural nature. And just that aspect of funding could be very beneficial to us.
And I think that from our experience of last legislative session, to remember to be cognizant of the audience that we're with, because sometimes, we're trying to bring up priorities and they're not even on an education committee. So sometimes it's about the relationship and building that time, but to prioritize, those that are on the committees like Vandaway and stuff like that. Those are the ones with, I think, to concentrate on those legislative priorities, or maybe some of our local legislators, it's just the time to, get that camaraderie and just touch bases with them on different priorities. Because last time I think we were in the room, we kind of felt that one of the legislators kind of felt like, okay, here we go. Let's get this over with, And I think we all felt it and was like, wow, okay, they're not on the committee. Yeah, really, what are we doing? So I think, with that laser focus going into it this time from our experience last, I think we can be pretty effective in the right place.
And I know the legislators are going to be very, very busy. And so we may be meeting with their staff, which is fine, because sometimes the staff are the gatekeepers to all the information. And I would appreciate it if last time we went, I know some of you we went to the meeting, but some of you went to the legislative floor, and I think we pulled Thuringer and Chapman off the floor to talk to them, and went to Senator Wellman's office to talk to her, or talk to her staff anyway. So I think those kinds of things are very important. So hopefully we'll kind of go with the flow and have a plan and then be ready to move here or there. That seemed to work well.
All right. Any other comments? All right, be on the lookout. We'll get stuff sent out, plans sent out, and take it from there. So. All right, why don't we go ahead? We have the contract that we recently added. I might have skipped right over that. Okay. 10.01, we'll do the contract for the HVAC. I believe was sent out via email. And do we have a motion?
Just, I move that we approve.
Yep.
Contract for swim school district wide BMS modernization.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? Here to cast an advisory vote on this contract? Yeah, it's okay. All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. All right, let's move on to 10.03. Second reading and approval of policy 2190, highly capable programs.
I move we approve policy 2190, highly capable program.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in, advisory vote? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. 10.04, second reading and approval, policy 2230, transition to kindergarten.
I move that we approve policy 2230 regarding transition to kindergarten.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Advisory, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Second reading approval, policy 3122, excused and unexcused absences.
I move that we approve policy 3122, excused and unexcused absences.
Second.
Any discussion? Advisory, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Next, we have our second reading and approval policy 3207, prohibition of harassment, intimidation, and bullying students.
Move that we approve policy 3207, prohibition of harassment, intimidation, and bullying students.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Advisory vote? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. 10.07, second reading and approval of policy 3225, school-based threat assessment.
I move we approve policy 3225, school-based threat assessment.
I second.
All right, any discussion? Advisory vote? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Second reading and approval policy 3241, student discipline.
I move that,
Go ahead, Lauren.
I move that we approve policy 3241, student discipline.
And I'll second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Just gonna bring us to 10.08, 09, which is second reading and approval policy 5050.
I move we approve policy 5050 contracts.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. We have any discussion? Hearing none. Any advisory vote on this one? Okay, that's okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. And that is going to, I believe, conclude our board business. My paper copy was a little off, so I had to juggle around on the numbers, but that's okay. That's how we do it.
Is that a misprint?
And
The executive session.
we do have an executive session.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we do. So, we are going to be not, recessing into an executive session. And the board will meet in executive session for approximately 60 minutes to review the performance of a public employee. With that, we stand in recess.